This shoe has a lot of history. You may or may not have heard about the BW Army Trainer, a shoe that's been around since the 70s, but in recent years has seen a high fashion version become much more popular. In 2024, it looks like Adidas will be putting the focus back on this model, and in this video, I'll be telling you everything you need to know about the Adidas BW Army Trainer. So I really can't review this shoe without talking about its very interesting history. Back in the 1970s, the West German Army announced that they were looking for a manufacturer who could make some training shoes for its entire force. And considering that at the time the West German Army was one of the biggest armies in the world, it was a very lucrative deal. Both Adidas and Puma took on the challenge, and there are some records that it was in fact Puma that came up with this original design that you see right here. However, it was Adidas that eventually won the contract and the BW Sport was born. The BW, of course, standing for Bundeswehr, which translates to German Armed Forces. The shoe is more commonly referred to by its nickname, the GAT, which stands for German Army Trainer, and the shoes were initially manufactured specifically for army purposes and not for commercial use, which is why the original pairs had absolutely no Adidas branding on them whatsoever. It was just a very minimalistic looking shoe. Now, when the Berlin Wall finally came down in 1989, at the time there was already well over 500,000 pairs in production. But now that the war had ended, the German army was drastically downsized. So suddenly there were hundreds and thousands of pairs of GATs which were in the hands of civilians, aka former soldiers. And in order to make some extra money, a lot of them ended up selling their pairs to German army surplus stores. And they then started to become very, very popular in the early 90s because people loved this shoe just for how clean and versatile it was. Now, one of the people that discovered this shoe in the 90s and fell in love with it was legendary Belgian designer Maison Margiela, who ended up buying dozens of pairs and putting them on his models during the 1999 Spring-Summer Maison Margiela show. The shoes were first of all cleaned, the laces were replaced, and also Margiela's branding was put on the tongue of the shoe. And the name that was given to the sneaker was the Replica because, of course, they were in fact a replica of the original German Army Trainer. In the mid-2000s, after running out of vintage sneakers to buy, Margiela actually ended up manufacturing their own replica sneakers. And since then, the Margiela GATs have become a staple for the brand. It's brought back every year in different versions, and you have to give credit to Margiela for making the GAT somewhat of an icon in the sneaker world. Dior also tried to make their own version of the GAT called the B01 in 2005, which featured a black stripe. And in 2017, it was Adidas themselves who decided to bring back its legendary shoe. However, this time actually giving it some Adidas branding, and it was seen as a much more affordable version of the GAT as opposed to the Margiela ones. Now, we've seen Adidas in the last couple of years really see some of its models like the Samba and the Gazelle become super popular, and while that trend doesn't really look like it's slowing down anytime soon, it seems like this year Adidas is trying to put some focus on the BW Army Trainer because we know that there's some pretty interesting collabs that will be dropping later this year on this model. First of all, with hard copy, a super clean white pair with some red details, and we're also going to be seeing a couple of colorways from Size, and that black one in particular is looking super clean. So we've covered the history. Now let's actually talk about the shoe. Now, this is exactly the type of sneaker you would want to buy if you're the type of person who just loves a very minimalistic looking shoes without too much branding. And yes, there is a bit of branding on the shoe, most notably on the tongue. You'll see the Adidas Trefoil logo there in white, and also there is some Adidas branding on the gum midsole, but that branding is barely noticeable. And on the rest of the upper, there is no branding at all. You don't get those typical 3 stripes like you see on the Sambas and the Gazelles, and it's pretty rare to get such minimal branding on a shoe from one of the major sneaker brands. Most of the sneaker is covered in a very smooth white leather. You also have the suede panels on the mudguard of the sneaker, which I would say are done in an off-white color, and that's also one distinguishing factor about the BW Armies versus the Sambas. The Sambas traditionally have gray suede on the toe box. There's also an extra panel of leather on the midfoot, which is one of the typical features of the GAT. You get some flat style laces as well, well, and this being a classic colorway, it also comes with this gum outsole, which is done in a light brown color, which I am always a fan of. And just the overall shape of this shoe, it is, I would say, very similar to the Sambas. It's very slim, it's very sleek, and it's a lot less bulkier looking than some other Adidas models like the Superstars and the Stan Smiths. Let's talk about the quality of the sneaker a little bit. So you got to keep in mind that this is only a $105 shoe, or I believe now the retail is $110. The quality of this leather, of course, they're nowhere near as good as the Margiela Gats, which are made out of Italian calfskin leather. These are made in a factory in Vietnam. There's not a lot of lining on the shoe either, so overall the upper does feel quite thin. I wouldn't say this is the best quality sneaker out there. You're mainly getting this for the looks. One good thing that I noticed, however, is that these do come with an ortholite insole, which is not something that the Sambas come with, so it does feel a bit more comfortable on feet compared to the Sambas. And for sizing on these, now when it comes to sizing on Adidas shoes, it seems to be different on every single model. So for these to be safe, I ended up getting them in my true size. And while they do fit a bit tight on my feet, there is also a bit of heel slippage, so I don't think that going up half a size was the right move for me. And also because they do fit kind of tight, I don't think I would go down half a size either, so it does seem like true to size seems to be the best bet with this shoe. Now that is how they fit my feet. They could fit your feet a bit different, but I will give you some sizing reference for myself with some other Adidas sneakers. So with the Adidas Gazelle Indoor, I go a half size down in that shoe for the best fit. And with your Sambas, so Sambas for me do fit quite narrow, so I actually go a half size up in Sambas. My true size is a US 11, so I am a US 11 in the BW Army, and 11.5 in the Sambas, and a 10.5 in Gazelles. Now I'm not sure when or if Adidas will be restocking this particular colorway later on this year. I did actually end up getting this pair from StockX. The prices on StockX were pretty much going for around retail, so that's why I ended up buying it. We do know that there will be some other colorways dropping this year, but let's see if Adidas gives us a much wider release of the original colorways. So let me hear your thoughts in the comments. What do you guys think about the Adidas BW Army Trainer? Are you going to give this shoe a shot this year? I like these shoes quite a lot, mainly because of the lack of branding. I also find myself really into the slimmer models these days, and a sneaker like this, I know I can just get a lot of use out of it. I know a lot of people will comment and saying buying the sneaker is like buying a pair of replica Margielas, which is a bit weird to say considering the Margielas are technically a replica of this shoe. I'm not too bothered by that personally. I think for the price, this is a great option. If you found this video useful, make sure you hit that subscribe button. That would really help me out, and drop a like as well if you enjoyed the content, and make sure you are following me on Instagram. That is where I am the most active, dropping content on there every single day. And oh, by the way, do not forget to check out my podcast as well. Links are in the description of this video. Thank you guys so much for stopping by and supporting the channel. I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.